In my quest to find some of the most weird, strange, and borderline degenerate mangas of all time, I think I might have found the winner. And these mangas are based off of the very cruel murder of Furuta Junko in the late 1980s in Japan. And yes, I said two. There's one manga that a lot of people might know of called 17 Sai. It's relatively well known when people talk about this case, but there is another one, less well known, that is even more degenerate and is just straight like you're gonna question humanity on why this was ever made. But if you've never heard of this crime case, in Japan it is referred to as the concrete encased high school girl murder case. Now, just be warned, it's gonna get a lot worse than just that. Like, it's gonna get really bad. So if you're not into that kind of stuff, just click off right now. Now, like I said, there are two mangas based off of this event. 17 Sai, again, really well known. I read it. I would honestly compare it to like a Netflix special like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. I would really just compete it to any other true crime TV show that you would see nowadays. But the other one, the way worse one, the only way I could find this was on a hentai website. I couldn't find it on any manga website. You have to find it on a hentai website, and the author is very well known for doing gore. So you know it's just gonna be bad. I don't even really want to say the manga, but I'm gonna do it. It's called Shin Gendai Ryokuden, Modern Stories of the Bizarre. As we go over the sad case of Furuta Junko, I'm going to be splicing in different pages of 17 Sai and this degenerate garbage thing that should have never been made. I'm not gonna be showing anything too terrible, and all this information is coming off the wiki, but I still want you guys to see the lengths and the degenerosity that some people are willing to go to. People have openly admitted to doing the deed to this why was this made? But enough of that. Let's go over the case that spawned the worst manga to have ever been made. Do not research this more than I'm telling you to, because it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse the more you look into it. Japan is relatively a safe place, but when they commit crimes, dude, they take it to another level. But with all that said, this is the murder case of Furuta Junko. Furuta was born in Misato, Saitama Prefecture. She lived with her parents, her older brother, and her younger brother. As a teenager, she attended Yashino Minami High School and worked part-time at a plastic factory during after high school hours since October 1988. She did this to save up some money for a trip she planned after graduation, and she also had accepted another job at an electronics retailer where she planned to work there after graduation. At high school, she was very well liked by her classmates, had great grades, and very ever missed a day. She was very popular with pretty features and had dreams of becoming an idol. The night she was abducted, Furuta had been looking forward to going home and watching the final episode of her favorite television show, Dragonfly. The perpetrators were four teenage boys: Lil Dick 1, 18 years old, Little Dick 2, 17 years old, Little Dick 3, 16 years old, and Little Dick 4, 17 years old. I absolutely refuse to ever say these people's names, and I only give them funny nicknames because these people, they do not deserve anything, and I hope eventually down the line they get what's coming to them. But spoiler alert, the justice system in Japan was very, very lenient on them, and my god, they should have just been killed. On November 25th, 1988, Little Dick 1 and Little Dick 2 wandered around Misato with the intentions of robbing and raping local women. At 8:30 p.m., they spotted Furuta riding her bike home after she had finished a shift at her job. Under LD1's orders, LD2 kicked Furuta off her bike and fled the scene. LD1, under the pretense of witnessing an attack by coincidence, approached Furuta and offered to walk her home. Upon gaining her trust, he raped her in a warehouse and again in a nearby hotel, threatening to kill her. From the hotel, LD1 called LD2 and his other friends, LD3 and LD4, and bragged to them about the rape. LD3 reportedly asked LD1 to keep her in captivity in order to allow numerous people to sexually assault her. The group had a history of gang rape and had recently kidnapped and raped another girl whom they released afterwards. At around 3 a.m., LD1 took Furuta to a nearby park where LD2, LD3, and LD4 were waiting. They had learned of her home address from a notebook and her backpack and told her they knew where she lived and that the Yakuza member would kill her family if she attempted to escape. The four boys overpowered her, took her to her house in the Ayase district of Adachi, and gang raped her. The house, which was owned by LD1's parents, soon became their regular gang hangout. On the 27th of November, Furuta's parents contacted the police about her disappearance. To discourage further investigation, the kidnappers forced her to call her mother 3 times to convince her that she had run away but was safe and staying with some friends. When LD1's parents were present, Furuta was forced to act as his girlfriend. They dropped the pretense when it became clear that LD1's parents would not report to the police. LD1's parents later claimed they did not intervene because they were afraid as their own son was increasingly violent towards them. What terrible parents! These parents are just as bad as oh my god. It's not that hard to get the police involved. You don't need to, you just get what are you doing? On the night of the 28th, LD1 invited 2 other boys, Little Dick 5 and Little Dick 6, to their house. They went upstairs where Junko was sitting wearing a long sleeve t-shirt and skirt that LD1 had stolen from a clothing store a few days prior. They drank cough medicine pretending it was drugs and acted high. Furuta tried to run away screaming in fear. LD1 grabbed her legs, and LD6 put a pillow over her face. The parents were awakened and went to check on the scream, to which LD1 told them it was nothing. The group then proceeded to gang rape Furuta. During this time, she was in a state of unconsciousness, staring at the ceiling without blinking. The group held her captive in the residence for 40 days, where they repeatedly beat, raped, and tortured her. They also invited other men and teenage boys into the home and encouraged them to take their turns raping her. According to the group's statement, the four shaved her pubic hair, forced her to dance to music while naked and masturbate in front of them, and left her on a balcony in the middle of the night with little clothing. They inserted objects including lit a match, metal rod, and a bottle, and force-fed her with large amounts of alcohol, milk, and water. She was also forced to smoke multiple cigarettes at once and inhale paint thinner. In one incident, LD1 repeatedly burned Furuta's legs and arms with lighter fluid. By the end of December, Furuta was severely malnourished after being fed small amounts of food and eventually only milk. Due to her severe injuries and infected burns, she became unable to go downstairs to the toilet and became confined to the floor of the room in a state of extreme weakness. Furuta's appearance was drastically altered from the brutality of the attacks. Her face was so swollen that it was difficult to make out her features. Her body was also severely crippled, giving off a rotting smell that caused the four boys to lose sexual interest in her. As a result, the boys kidnapped and gang raped a 19-year-old woman who, like Furuta, was on her way home from work. On the 4th of January 1989, after losing a game of mahjong against another person the night before, LD1 decided to take his anger out on Furuta by pouring lighter fluid on her body and setting her on fire. Furuta allegedly made attempts to put out the fire but gradually became unresponsive. They continued to punch her, ignite a candle and dripping hot wax on her face, placed 2 candles on her eyelids, and forced her to drink her own urine. After she was kicked, she fell into a stereo unit and collapsed into a fit of convulsions. Since she was bleeding profusely and pus had emerged from her infected burns, the 4 boys covered their hands in plastic. They continued to beat her and dropped an iron exercise ball onto her stomach several times. The attack reportedly lasted 2 hours. Furuta eventually succumbed to her wounds and died. Less than 24 hours after their death, these pieces of shit brothers called to tell him that Furuta appeared to be dead. Afraid of being penalized for murder, the group wrapped her body in blankets and shoved her into a travel bag. They then put her body in a 55 US gallon drum and filled it with wet concrete. Around 8 p.m., they loaded it and eventually disposed of the drum in a cement truck in Koto, Tokyo. During her captivity, Furuta had mentioned to her captors several times that she regretted not being able to watch the final episode of Dragonfly. Piece of shit 1 found the videotape of the episode and placed it in her travel bag. As he later explained, it was not because he pitied Furuta, but because he did not want her to return as a ghost and haunt him. My god, these are the worst human beings of all time. On January 3rd, 1989, 2 pieces of shit were arrested for gang rape of a 19-year-old girl whom they had kidnapped in December. On 29th of March, 2 police officers came to interrogate them as women's underwear had been found in their address. During the interrogation, Little Dick 1 believed that the officers were aware of his culpability in Furuta's murder. Thinking that LD6 or 5, one of those idiots, had confessed to the crimes against Furuta, LD1 told the police where to find her body. The police were initially a little puzzled by the confession, as they had been referring to the murder of a different woman and her 7-year-old son that had occurred 9 days prior to Furuta's abduction, a case which also remains unsolved. The police found the drum containing Furuta's body the following day. She was identified via fingerprints on April 1st, 1989. Little Dick, I believe this is 5 or 6, was arrested for a separate sexual assault and subsequently rearrested for Furuta's murder. The rest of the other Little Dick crew followed. Several other accomplices who participated in abusing and raping Furuta were officially identified, including Little Dick 7 and Little Dick 8, who were charged with rape after their DNA was found on the inside of the victim's body. My god, is that awful? These people deserve to be shot. Line them up, shoot them in the dick, and then shoot him in the face. That is what needs to happen, but that's not what happened. Because the world is not fair, that is not what happened. The identities of the defendants were sealed by the court as they were all juveniles at the time of the crime. Journalists from the magazine uncovered their identities and published them. Good on them, on the grounds that, given the severity of the crime, the accused did not deserve to have their rights of anonymity upheld. Good for that, journalist people. Good for them. They don't deserve anything. All the 4 defendants pled guilty to committing bodily injury that resulted in death. My god, they don't even get the murder charge. In July 1990, a lower court sentenced, I think this is Little Dick 1, the leader of the crime, to 17 years in prison. He appealed his sentence, but the Tokyo High Court judge sentenced him to an additional 3 years in prison. He was 18 years old at the time of Furuta's murder. After his release, I think this is Little Dick 2, moved in with his mother. However, in 2018, Little Dick 2 was arrested again for attempted murder after beating a 32-year-old man with a metal rod and slashing his throat with a knife. Little Dick 3, who was originally sentenced to 3 to 4 years in prison, only that, are you kidding me? Received an upgrade sentence of 5 to 7 years. Good. I mean, it's not life, but It's better than 3 to 4. He was 17 at the time of the murder. For his role in the crime, I think this is LD 5 or 6, served 8 years in a juvenile prison before he was released in August 1999. He is said to have boasted about his role in the kidnapping and rape and torture of Furuta. That guy just needs to be like given cement shoes. He does not deserve the right to live. In 2004, I think this is Little Dick, whatever, I don't know, this is another Little Dick one, was arrested for assaulting somebody else, an acquaintance he thought his girlfriend may have been involved in. A Little Dick guy beat him down, shoved him into his truck, and then drove him to his mother's bar in Masato, where he allegedly beat him for 4 hours. During the time, Little Dick guy threatened to kill him, telling them that he had killed before and he knew how to get away with it. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison for assaulting this guy and has since been released. Little Dick's mother allegedly vandalized Furuta's grave, stating the dead girl had ruined her son's life. Yeah, okay, your son brutally raped and murdered a girl, but yeah, it's her fault that he ruined. God, this mom needs some cement shoes. Can we get on that? Can we get some more of these? Dude, get a sweatshop in China. Start making cement shoes for Nike and hand them out to these people. These are terrible human beings. I think this is LD1, was denied parole in 2004. He was released from prison in 2009. In January 2013, he was rearrested for fraud. Due to insufficient evidence, he was released without charge later that month. I think this is LD2, who originally received 4 to 6 year sentence, was resentenced to 5 to 9 years by a judge upon appeal. He was 16 at the time of the murder. His parents and brother were not charged. Furuta's parents were dismayed by the sentences received by their daughter's killer and won a civil suit against the parents of LD2, in whose home the crimes were committed. LD1's mother reportedly paid Junko Furuta's parents 50 million yen, which is like 425,000 in compensation, as ordered by the civil court after selling their family home. That's not enough, man. That's not even close to enough. And like I said, the creator of this degenerate manga also does a lot of other gore hentai. I don't know why this is allowed to be a thing. Like I said, you can do things based off a true crime as long as you handle it respectfully and don't make it so people can jerk off to it. But this is definitely the most degenerate manga that I have ever read based on a true story. And do not go looking for it. It is absolutely terrible. And my God, do I hope no one ever has to experience what this poor girl experienced, because that is some of the most brutal stuff that I have ever read. Now, if this was like the dictatorship of Rabbit, like this was my kingdom, a far worse, they would be begging me for Minecraft death. At least the sad case was solved and it wasn't left unsolved, but the punishment for the crimes definitely is not justice. And also getting exploited in this terrible, awful hentai. There's not much else that they could possibly do to this poor woman. So hopefully she may rest in peace. And that is going to be the end of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Do not go search this out. It is degenerate. And that's it. Peace.